Hello, boys. Welcome for the second part of your social and political life, chapter 3. What is government chapter? Boys, in our previous part of the chapter, that is, first part of the chapter, we have learned what is government, then levels of government, different levels of government, and then laws and the government, useful of laws of the government. So far, we have learned, boys. Now, let us continue the second part of the chapter. That is page number 31. Types of government. Who gives the government this power to make decision and enforce laws? Boys, in order to make decisions, what to do and what should not, and they used to enforce these laws, who has given this right to them, or who has given this power to them? The answer to this question depends on the type of government there is in a country. Answer: it will depend on the type of government there is in a country. What sort of government is there? It depends on that. In a democracy, it is the people who give the government this power. So, in a democratic country, boys, our country is a democratic country where people used to cast their vote and they used to elect their government. So it is the people who give, in this way you see, it is the people who give the government this power in order to make decisions and enforce laws. They do this through elections in which they vote for particular persons and elect them. So they do this, means our government do this, and we used to elect them through elections in which people used to vote for particular persons and elect them in order to form the government. Once elected, these persons form the government. So if they are elected once, then they, or that means individual person, okay, with a group of persons form the government. In a democracy, the government has to explain its actions and defend its decisions to the people. So in a democracy, in a democratic country, boys, government, they has to explain or express its actions and defend its decision to the people. Another form of government is monarchy. So apart from this democracy, you find another form of government is there, which is known as monarchy. Means where king or queen is ruling. Here election is not necessary and leaders are not elected by the people. The monarch, means king or queen, has the power to make decision and run the government. So in this form, in monarchism, okay, in monarchy, the monarch means king or queen, has the power in order to make decisions and run the government. The monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters with, but the final decision making power remains with the monarch. So, in monarchism, boys, the monarch, king, or queen may have a small group of people in order to discuss matters with, in order to discuss the matter, but the final decision making power it remains with the monarch. Final decision it is making by the monarch, king, or the queen. Unlike in a democracy, kings and queens do not have to explain their actions or defend the decisions they take. It is not like that in a democracy. Okay, here kings and queens do not have to explain. They are not necessary to explain their actions or to defend the decisions they take. Here it is not necessary in the part of monarch. Or some questions are given there, boy. You try it yourself, and in case if you find any difficulty, you can ask me, and then I will supply these answers. Okay. Democratic governments. Let us see the form of government which we have in our India. Democratic governments. India is a democracy. See, democracy, what is a democracy? If anybody asks you, it is a form of government, boys. Of the people, for the people, and by the people. It is made by the people, and it is for the people. It is of the people. Okay. This achievement means a thing done successfully with effort. This achievement is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. So, this effort they get, it is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. There are other places in the world where people have also struggled to have democracies. So there are other places in the world where people they have also struggled to have democracies. Means they also like to remain in a democratic country. You now know that the main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. I think you now know, boys, that the main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. Come on, mark this one also, okay? The main feature here. What is the main feature of a democracy? If it asks, you have to answer. The main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. People used to elect their leaders. They have this power in a democracy. So, in a sense, a democracy is ruled by the people. So, in one sense, that means in a democracy, here people rule there, okay? Because leader used to elect by the people, that's why means so. The basic idea, so in a sense, a democracy is ruled by the people, the basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. So the main idea is here, boys. It is that people, they rule themselves. Yes, they are making their leaders by themselves. That's why it means here people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Democratic governments in our times are usually referred to as representative democracies. Representative democracies means indirect democracy. Okay. Then in representative democracies, people do not participate directly, but instead choose their representatives through an election process. See the procedure. In a representative democracies, people, they do not participate directly, but instead, in place of that, they used to choose their representatives, their leaders, through an election process. These representatives, okay, our see MLAs, MPs, they are our representatives, boys, because we have elected them. Okay, as we used to elect them, that's why by casting our vote, that's why they become our representatives who came on behalf of us. Okay, these representatives meet and make decision for the entire population. So after that means election over, this elected person, okay, they meet and make decision for the whole population. These days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows what is known as universal adult franchise. These days, a government they cannot call itself democratic unless it allows the right to vote. Okay, this means that all adults in the country are allowed to vote. It means here that universal adult franchise, that all adults whose age is 18 years or more, they are known as here adults. All adults in the country are allowed to vote. Boys, let us see page number 32 towards the right margin of this book, which we have skipped here. Let's go through this. Now, where in the world have governments willingly shared power? Uh, okay, see here, boys. Sorry, it should be nowhere in the world have governments willingly shared power. Nowhere, no places here in the world have governments willingly, likely they shared power. All over Europe and USA, women and the poor have had to fight for participation in the government. See, all over Europe and USA, the women and the poor, they have had to fight in order to participate in government. Okay. Women's struggle to vote got strengthened during the First World War. This movement is called the women's suffrage movement. As the term suffrage usually means right to vote. Here, suffrage means the right to vote in political election. This movement is called so the women's suffrage movement. As the term suffrage usually means right to vote. During the war, many men were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to do work that was earlier considered men's work. So during the war, many men were away fighting. They were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to do work. Yes, that means men were away fighting. That's why what happened? Because of this, women were called upon to do work that was earlier considered men's work, which was earlier treated as the work of men. Many women began organizing and managing different kinds of work. Here, many women they started to organize and manage different kinds of work. When people saw this, they began to wonder why they had created so many unfair stereotypes about women and what they were capable of doing. When people saw this thing, okay, they started to surprise their wonder why they had created so many unfair here regarding the idea of a particular person or thing, that is called stereotypes about women and what they were capable. They were, that means able to do. Capable means able to do of a thing, of doing, that means their capacity to do that. So women began to be seen as being equally capable of making decisions. So in this way, we find women they started to be seen as being equally with other. They are capable of making decisions. The suffragettes demanded the right to vote for all women, and to get their demands heard, they chained themselves to railings in public places. Many suffragettes were imprisoned and went on hunger strikes. Here, that means for that purpose, what happened? Many suffragettes they were imprisoned. They were sent to prison and went on a hunger strikes, and they had to be fed by force. American women got the right to vote in 1920, while women in the UK got to vote on the same terms as men some years later in 1928. So in these different years, this American and UK women got such opportunity for voting system. Again, let us see page number 33. Okay, just after the continuation paragraph of page number 32. But it was not always like this. Can you believe that? There was a time when governments did not allow women and the poor to participate in elections. So, sorry, it was not always like this. Means about that universal adult franchise that all adults in the country are allowed to vote. Can you believe that there was a time when governments did not allow women? There was a time when that means government, sorry, government did not allow and the poor to participate in elections. Okay, in earlier days, boys, women and the poor people were not allowed in the elections in order to take part in the election. In their earliest forms, governments allowed only men who owned property and were educated to vote. In their earliest forms, at first, okay, governments allowed only those men who are educated, who are qualified, okay, and own property to vote. If a person is not educated or having no property, he was out of election. He was not allowed for election or voting purposes. This meant that women, the poor, the propertyless, and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. Means here, boys, first that means women, the poor, and the propertyless, those who have no money, no land like that, and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. The country was governed by the rules and regulations that these few men made. At the time, the country it was governed by the rules and regulation, okay, that these few men used to make. Okay, in India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote in our country, India, was before independence, before 15th of August 1947. At that time, only a few minority was allowed to vote. Minority means, uh, here as example we can see in our state Manipur. For Manipur, Meitei or Manipuris are majority. Okay, then other communities they belongs to minority. Okay, those whose that means population is less, they are known as minority here. So in our country, India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. So, as a small minority was allowed to take part in election to vote, and there came, they therefore came together to determine their fate of the majority. Okay, they have to based on majority because decision making it was made by majority. Several people, including Gandhiji, means Mahatma Gandhi, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. So several people, including our Gandhiji, father of nation, were certain upsetting at the unfairness of this practice. Means here only majority has to take part to vote, and only a few minority, not all the minority, were allowed. So to see this situation, several people, including Gandhiji, they were upsetting with this unfairness of this practice and demand that all adults have the right to vote. And it was demanded by several people as well as Gandhiji that all adults, they must have the right to vote. This is known as universal adult franchise. It is known as universal adult franchise. All adults are allowed to vote. Writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji said, I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should have the vote, but that a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who works honestly by the sweat of his brow day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man. So, writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji made this remark. He said, I cannot possibly bear the idea, okay, he was not agree with this idea that a man who has got wealth should have the vote. Okay, a man who is rich here, okay, should have the vote. This idea was, in one sense, we can say Gandhiji disliked it. But that a man who has got character but no wealth or should have no vote, but that a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy, he is not, that means having not having any education, should have no vote, or that a man who works honestly by the sweat of his brow day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man. So Gandhiji, he himself, that means he cannot possibly bear this man, that means very honestly who works by the sweat of his brow the whole day and night, okay, whole day in and day out. They should not have the vote. It is because of the crime is here. He belongs to a poor family or poor man. So here is the end of the chapter, boys. That's up to here for today. Thank you all.